So in the 3 months since I've started taking this channel seriously, I've noticed that above all else, MMA content creation is a weird but super necessary part of this wacky and very unserious sport. And the direction I'm going to go in with this topic might surprise some people. So to start, without fail, every one of my retrospectives has been claimed by the UFC. And to be honest, I don't really mind when it comes to monetization. Like, I'm a small channel, and even channels that are infinitely larger than mine have suffered from the same issue. And to be honest, I knew what I was getting into once I started making MMA content with UFC footage in it. Even back in 2013, when I tried making my first MMA channel, things were even worse, and I remember hearing that the UFC would sometimes attempt to block videos if you had results in your titles, or even just used official images in your thumbnails. So until the UFC just straight up turns these content bots off completely, it's going to be an issue. The problem I do have is that these claims are causing my videos to be blocked in certain areas, and falling down the statistical thresholds required of keeping partnership, which, again, is not about the money for me, but the potential loss of audience reach with my content. This gives me a conundrum, as I'm just trying to grow my channel more than anything right now, and I've had to edit or change nearly every video in some way or another to bypass these issues, and that's not fun at all, since the built-in tools they give you to do so make it very hard to not diminish a video's quality with these edits. I've also seen videos of MMA content creators getting strikes from other MMA content creators, and infighting and all kinds of mess that brings, and I want to avoid issues like that at all costs. I think I'm fortunate in my case that my content is geared more towards the past and retrospectives. If my content covered recent MMA events and I had to find clips that helped tell my narratives that way, then this would likely be more of a problem, but to be honest, even then, I don't really think so. See, I feel as a content creator that ultimately relies heavily on the materials of others, it's the creator's responsibility, aka my own, to be fully aware of what content I'm putting in my videos and where I'm getting that content from. And I also feel it's my burden as a creator to make my content stylistically unique enough where no matter what is on screen, people know they are watching content made specifically by me. One of my favorite content creators is Beige Frequency, and what makes his presentation unique is that he is a very talented artist that uses his screen to showcase artwork of the subject of his video while he narrates the content. And to me, this is brilliant for two reasons. One, you aren't required to watch the video to understand the content or its context, which means you can pretty much listen to his videos as straight up podcasts while you're doing other things. And two, his content is uniquely engaging to his own channel when you do watch it. As people have pointed out to me in my comments, I do wear my inspirations on my sleeve. Content creators like Emp Lemon, Tom Grossi, Secret Base, Napoleon Bonaparte, and Beige Frequency have been huge inspirations as to what kind of content I wanted to make and how I wanted to go about making it. I do feel I'm still finding my own unique voice here in this space, and I know I'm not going to get the perfected formula down in 10 videos. It's all trial and error. My ultimate goal is to create enough content and make it appealing enough to a large enough audience so that I can eventually create a Patreon or do memberships so that a lot of these content issues can be mitigated. But I have to be disciplined and creative enough to not only make that possible, but also feel my content is up to the quality and consistency standards to deserve that kind of monetary support from an audience who will also consistently receive content they are satisfied with. Because the truth is, we need MMA content creation more than ever. I feel the ecosystem of how we consume MMA and its coverage is a strange and scattered wild west of a place today. And with the apparent death of pay-per-view in America and the potential eventual death of Fight Pass, it's going to make how we consume the UFC product more convenient, but potentially more stale. I remember back in 2012 and 2013, I wouldn't miss an interview on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. I wouldn't miss a live stream with Luke Thomas, and I couldn't wait for an episode of the MMA Beat. I'd also refresh Bleacher Report and the Sheerdog forums constantly. These were the go-to ways to find out about the characters of our sport, stay updated, and be an active member of the community. It's completely different now, and for someone like me, how Ariel Helwani and Luke Thomas specifically have changed over the last decade is incredibly fascinating. Contrary to what many people like to say these days, I don't think Ariel has lost his love of MMA or anything like that. I think the guy has just ventured into other things to keep his career fresh and exciting for him. The guy has been covering MMA for 20 years and has had a roller coaster career. but I think he has successfully found a way to keep his career interesting for himself and has managed to stay relevant in that space, which is incredibly difficult to do over that long of a time. Even if his content is not really my cup of tea anymore, I can't help but be happy for the guy. Now, Luke Thomas is almost the yin to Ariel's yang. I still find this dude absolutely fascinating. While I personally have never been the biggest fan of Morning Kombat, and I've never really thought Luke was a great interviewer or co-host, the evolution of Luke as a persona in this media landscape is almost partially a cautionary tale by his own admission. The guy's aged like 30 years in the past 10, seems absolutely exhausted by his career covering MMA, and his solution seems to be going into covering politics, which I can't imagine that being much better for his mental health long term. But he is still very authentically himself, warts and all, and in such a manufactured and piecemeal content stream that the majority of mainstream MMA content consumption has become, Luke is ironically a breath of exacerbated fresh air. Tuning in every week and listening to this guy vent about how tiresome the sport of MMA is becoming, and answering questions about central leftist politics from usernames like catfarts, while his daughter desperately craves his attention in the background, to me is both relatable, cozy, and still has merit. Also, his saga of absolutely glazing Ilya Taporia, while everyone else rightfully found him incredibly cringe, but then having his heart ripped out by the Matador after he went on some podcast and said things that Luke disagreed with politically, and Luke doing the whole "he was never my friend" bit, was ironic bliss. Then you have MMA fighting and its programming, where whatever they are paying Mike Heck, it isn't enough. This dude is carrying that channel on his shoulders, and while I do kinda get tired of him saying the same lines of "the UFC doesn't care" or "just hand him a giant bag of money" as his go-to answers for many questions, if it wasn't for how he ran that ship, I probably would have tuned out a long time ago. And maybe this is just a me thing, but why Jed Meshew isn't going independent or creating his own YouTube channel content is beyond me. I think he could quickly reach the same heights as a Luke Thomas or an Ariel Helwani, but that's just my own preferences talking. Maybe he doesn't want to do that. And if you are wondering why I haven't brought up people like the MMA Guru or Jesse on Fire or any of those guys, I really don't have anything against them at all. They just aren't my vibe content-wise, and I don't want to speak on something that I don't know anything about. I'm more of an ITP, GK, Vampiric Legs, bedtime MMA enjoyer, as well as the other channels I mentioned earlier in the video. I also really miss when MMA On Point would release segments of their roundtable discussions to encourage memberships. I felt it really gave a human element to that channel that I sorely miss these days. And then you have smaller channels like Borderline MMA, who I really enjoy, and who has enjoyed my content as well, crawling up this MMA content ladder and likely feeling the same euphorias and challenges that I have. But I think that's kind of the point I'm getting at here. You have so many choices and styles of content within this MMA landscape that even with the copyright struggles, the potential infighting, the controversies, and the ever-changing way we consume the sport in general, finding ways to feel connected to other people who enjoy this sport in your own unique way that feels catered to you specifically, and to be able to share that with others, is honestly a beautiful thing that is needed more than ever today. The fact that I've started to gain a small little bit of momentum here in this space and am connecting with like-minded people has filled me with a level of motivation and positive outlook on not just the sport, but my own abilities as a creator, while I tirelessly work my 9 to 5 in the corporate video production world. So, thank you. Thank you all for providing me with that motivation, and I hope to continue to grow. Oh, and one other thing. Sorry to disappoint, but I'm not an AI.